Meeting is starting now. So hopefully we're live. It's saying it's starting now. It hasn't said we're live yet. But anyway, let's pretend we're live. Hey everyone, welcome to Technology for Good. This is episode 74. Oh my God.
Jesus. Yeah, no, episode 74, that is whenever I consider where we were this time last year.
Yeah.
What would that have been? Episode 50 maybe? 50 or 24?
No, but 20 something. Yeah. We were in a bedroom. I shouldn't say that. We were yourself, myself, and Nigel did the show from a hotel room in Las Vegas early one morning. Because you're at the same event. I'm not. You're at the same event this year. It's early morning Pacific time in Las Vegas. And I'm here in Spain in the afternoon of the same day.
Yep, absolutely. So we're back here. I'm back here at SAP Tech Ed 2015, and it's the day after the big concert. Now, unlike last year, I got to bed at a sensible time. I think I went to bed about 2 as opposed to 4 o'clock last year, maybe half 4. So, but yeah, no, it's been a good week. It has been a good week. So just looking forward to getting home. So unfortunately for all our lovely viewers, I'm on an iPad this week, so you don't get my lower third. So I'm, using, to me, it's Chris Kernahan, Boo Boo, and we're having fun.
Good, so, awesome. And I'm Tom Raftery. I work for a company called Thingmonk. I'm an industry analyst, and we run this show every week for the last 74 weeks approximately. And we typically do a bit about setting context first. We're talking about some of the bad news kind of stuff that's going on, and then kind of go from there. Once we got that out of the way, go into all the good news stories about how technology is helping us mitigate some of the problems that we've created for ourselves. So, with that, I reckon we go straight into the stories, and we're going to try and keep the show pretty short this week because Chris has got to drop out at the half hour. So we'll try and squeeze it all into the 30 minutes. Chris, how's that for a plan?
Oh God! Okay, we'll give it a go. We'll have to cut our chat to a minimum, but I can run with that.
Alrighty. So the first story, and I mean, this is an easy one because we've actually talked about this before. This is just an update. I mean, you can see the story is October 21st, dateline October 21st. But this is kind of been talked about every month. The NOAA comes out with a new statistic which says this year is going to be worse than every other year. And they keep doing it and they keep getting more and more accurate about it. There's a graph here you can see, which is pretty shocking. This chart here. And this is the chart. And I actually used this in the last talk I gave when I was in Antwerp at the Tesla World event.
Yep.
These lines here, these 5 lower lines, are the 5 hottest years to date in the historical temperature record. So you've got 2013, 2005, 98, 2014, and 2010. 2014 was the hottest year ever on the temperature records.
Yeah.
The top line, the dark line, is 2015.
Yeah, and that's there's a full at best there's a full 0.1 degree. At worst, there's a full 0.2 degrees. At best it's what is it? Because when you look at 2014, most of it hovers around the 1.3. The 1.3. 2015 distantly is above 1.5.
Yeah, so it's 2.2 degrees centigrade above, and that's just, I mean, I know we've got an El Nino effect dragging it up.
Yeah, but the thing about it is the story actually says, that the temperatures are running so far ahead of 97 and 98 that the scientists are saying you cannot get this unless you accept that the underlying trend is caused by human emissions of greenhouse gases.
Yeah. And 98 was the last big El Nino.
Yeah.
Just to put it in context for anyone who's not aware of that.
But that is also on the graph there. That's on the graph there. You can see that 98 El Nino, and you'll see how far above we actually are. It's scary.
That's right. That's it right there where I've got the pointer now.
Yeah.
So no, it's Yeah, we're going the wrong direction. Basically, that's the point. On that graph there, you've got 1880 on the left, 2015 on the right, and average temperatures below the average here on the left, and then they go radically the wrong direction here on the right. So anyway, we all know the trends, and that leads to things like this, which is actually quite optimistic. We've got a full paper ad taken out by ex-military and foreign policy leaders in the US, which is squarely aimed at Republicans who are doing their damnedest to block action on cutting carbon emissions. So, I mean, when you read the name in this, it's a full page ad in the Wall Street Journal. You've got 48 former secretaries of defense, national security advisors, diplomats, and members of Congress from both parties, and they're all saying it's time for America to get a fucking grip, basically. You've got people like Madeleine Albright, who was Secretary of State under Bill Clinton, Chuck Hagel, Secretary of Defense under Obama, George Shultz under Reagan, James Woolsey, CIA Director under Clinton, and other prominent retired officials. So basically, they're just putting it to the Republicans, saying, guys, stop. This is a big problem, and you're playing football with it, and that's not good enough.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that, before the show we talked about this. It is, the headline says it all: the fight climate change for global stability, and it comes back to the idea of the water wars, where where countries will actually go to war over natural resources, and we have seen some of that in the Middle East, with the aquifers and things. But the this is something that is really, really important, because ultimately, who does the report of the number, the amount that we actually consume as Earth? Is it Greenpeace that do sort of the world report, where they tell you by about 6 months in the year you've consumed all the natural resources that can be replenished within 1 year? And we're now, every day past that, we're now
we're on planet 2.
Pardon?
We're on planet 2.
Yes, exactly. This all plays to that story, to say, we're consuming a lot of natural resources. We need global stability. We need to fight climate change. We need to basically stop overconsumption and climate change, which will actually create a lot of more stability, because people won't, countries will not go to war over natural resources, or reduce the chance of them going to war over natural resources.
Yeah, and I mean, if you just look at the current situation in the Middle East, the big problem area is Syria, and the civil war in Syria, a large part of that civil war is down to climate change, because you had an enormous drought between 2006 and 2011, which basically drove over 1 million farmers off the land. Their farms failed, their crops failed, their livestock failed. You had literally millions of cattle dying due to drought, and suddenly you had over 1 million people who were formerly farmers descending on cities that had no jobs for them. You had a lot of unrest as a result, and that led to a civil war and the situation we see there now.
Yeah, no, absolutely,
and we'll see.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I said good news, so
yes.
The better news, we're starting to see a lot of good news coming out, and so this is one cool one. This is the world.
You think it's cool?
I think it's cool. I do
think it's cool, but I just have a problem.
So this is a solar challenge. It's an annual event. It happened. It's a race across Australia. It's a 3,000-kilometer race using just solar-powered vehicles. And this year, it was won by the Dutch University in Delft. They won the race, and there was a second university out of the Netherlands which came third, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And they won it. This is the Delft University celebrating with their car, and you can see some of the pictures of them celebrating in the fountains there. And this is their car on the road, driving across Australia. And there were others. This is the one that came third. And you can see it took 4 days for them to complete the 3,000-kilometer race. I know you were saying beforehand, Chris, when we were talking about this offline, you were saying that these cars don't look anything like practical, and you're right, they don't.
Yeah.
But my answer to that is that sure, but Formula One cars don't look practical either. But the advances from the development of Formula One cars trickle down into production vehicles, and you have to think that the advances from these things in universities, they're developed mostly by universities, so the advances in the development of these things should also make their way into production vehicles at some point. I mean, we are developing a lot of electric vehicles now, both because of Tesla and, ironically, because of Volkswagen.
Yeah. No, true. Nowadays, it is. When you think of the achievement, it is a phenomenal achievement. So it is. But I look at them and go, wow, that is one ugly vehicle. And that's just, I just can't help think that.
Sure, I drive a Prius, Chris, and a lot of people think that's an ugly car. I don't, but a lot of people do, and it's a matter of aesthetics.
Yeah.
But the Tesla Model S is a fully battery electric car.
Yeah, no, it is.
I've never heard anyone call that an ugly car.
No, that's a pretty sweet car, and considering I'm trying to get Mrs. K to let me get one, I'm not going to diss it. I'm gonna big that car up a long way.
Yeah.
So yeah, no. But look, the achievement is awesome. 3,000 kilometers that on just running on solar.
Yeah. And it's an annual event. I mean, this isn't the first time they've done it. Yeah.
No, I am absolutely, I'm fully behind them and support them. They do look weird.
Then they do.
They look weird. It's like something that comes from the abyssal plains in the Atlantic Ocean. It's that weird. But here we go.
Here we go. So the next story talks about Microsoft getting involved in the electrification of the transportation fleet. They've teamed up with ABB. And I've forgotten what ABB stands for. It was something Brown Boveri. It's an Italian company, huge company. It's about 120,000 employees, one of the larger companies in the world. And they're back-end company, so they're bringing electric car charging platforms to the fore. So you've got your electric car charger here, but of course there's data from that which has to go to the back end, which has to be shared on a kind of a cloud platform. That's the idea. So Microsoft are bringing ABB and their car charging platform onto the Azure platform, so that data can be shared pretty seamlessly. It's an interesting one because it's a new kind of vertical that Microsoft are getting into for Azure.
Yeah, it is an interesting one. As we said offline, that's only half the curtain for me. There's something else on the other side of that curtain.
Yeah, you see them getting to the front end as well.
Yeah, there's something else there, whether it's a connected car drive or whether it's an actual vehicle. I don't think it's an actual vehicle, but certainly it would be a connected drive. So when you actually pair that with that smart grid technology in the Azure platform, you could do some really, really interesting stuff. We just haven't seen the consumer side of that. As you said, ABB is not a consumer company. You see their name everywhere when it comes to the infrastructure that supports your life. Yeah. But you never have an ABB product in your hand. So from that point of view, I think it's a really good fit. But it'll be interesting to see. So very interesting to see. And then the fact the chargers themselves are actually fast chargers.
They are, yeah.
So it means that there was a frightening statistic actually that it was actually a TechEd, like 30% of city traffic is actually looking for parking spaces.
That's right.
When we get the electric vehicles, a lot of those parking spaces will be electrified, whether that's by induction chargers underneath or plug-in chargers. But the faster the charger, then the less time you're actually going to have to spend over and above what your stay would be to charge your vehicle. So with the smarter cars, the faster chargers, and the smarter cities, then that will just be awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah. No, fully agreed. It's uh, it's a brave new world we're heading into. It's phenomenal.
Oh,
The whole electrification of the transportation fleet. It really it gets me going. It's fascinating. It's so exciting what's going to happen.
oh yeah, no, totally.
So moving on though, because you were thinking of the not just the electrification of the fleet, but also the UI, the way you interact with cars. I mean, you have CarPlay, the Apple Play, you have the Google's Play as well for cars, and part of the Google one, they've got this Waze company, this Israeli startup that they bought about 2 years ago now, I think it was, for a
Yeah.
couple of billion euro. And Waze just got a massive update for its UI. And it does things like it's an easier to read. It's got more alerts, more prominent on the screen. There's a new ETA panel which shows when you'll arrive. It's only on iOS for now, but it'll be out on Android soon. Given that they're a Google company, you'd expect it to be out on Android really,
Well,
really soon.
I actually hadn't realized it'd been acquired. It's not going to stop me. It's not going to stop me using them. I really like the product, but these
Yeah.
features, I've actually had these for a while. So I have at least. When did I move from SAP? I think I moved in May. So I've been using Waze again on the Android platform for 5 months, and I have had those features. So at least 5 months I've had those features on Android.
Okay. Okay.
What it is, it's a really nice platform. It's a really simple platform.
Cool.
So
And
it works well.
the other thing in that kind of space is that we're going to talk about is that this company Shype, who are they're pitching themselves as a competitor to the likes of UPS and FedEx. But what they're doing is they're adding tracking tags for recipients. And also, when you sign up and get a Ship account, they automatically take your address on board. So similar to email, when you go into the to field in email and start to type somebody's name, it automatically, figures out who it is and what their email address is, and then you just hit send and the email goes to them. The same kind of idea Ship are working with. If you type in someone's name, it automatically figures out who you're talking about, what their address is. So it's just it's getting rid of friction.
Yeah.
And it has a tag in there as well, so you can track the shipment. Not just you, the shipper, but also the recipient can track where it is. And the whole thing is about, as I say, doing away with friction. You can add photographs of what you're sending as well, and cool stuff like that. But the main thing is, it's this SHYP guys. They're all about doing away with the difficulties that are involved in sending stuff in logistics and making it easier for people to do this.
It is like whenever I read it, I was sitting thinking, why would I want to, how does that actually benefit, the tag and all that, or the actual the tracking and the shipping addresses and things. And then whenever I was reading about the tag and how it actually allows you to track the whole way through, because when I read the tag in the headline, I was sitting thinking, is that like your shipping label or what? And then whenever you actually read it, you know it's a geolocation tag.
Yeah,
which is actually really, really cool. So it'll help with things like deliveries. When you have to be home and whenever you don't have to be home, you can actually see where your thing actually is. So, for example, one of the things that drives me nuts is, occasionally and actually quite often in my house we run out of milk. I like my tea. So I know that the second I walk out the door, the postman is going to arrive and leave me a little label saying we tried to deliver.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at my phone. I can see the postman is in the village over this, the town over. I know he's not going to be in my house for at least 20 minutes. I can nip to the shop and I can get a bottle of milk. I can get a pint of milk. Be back home with a cup of tea in my hand, ready to receive the package. Best case scenario, worst case scenario, he's not coming to me first straight after that village. There we go.
Yeah.
So But yeah.
So I received a DHL parcel about a half an hour ago.
Yeah.
And I was following the tracking on DHL's site, and it went out for shipment at 10:30 this morning.
Yeah.
So between 10:30 this morning and 4:30 this afternoon, or 4:50 this afternoon when it was delivered, there was no update. So that's 6 hours, 20 minutes where you've no idea where the delivery truck is. And to your point, do I have 10 minutes to nip down to the shop, or should I, it's hugely annoying. So having the geotag on it, really, really cool. Really, really cool. We'll move on. So this one I thought was fascinating. These are autonomous trucks which are being used by Rio Tinto in their mining operations, which, I have a hard time, thinking this is a good thing, making mining more efficient. But anyway, the point is these trucks are driverless trucks. And these are these massive trucks. These wheels here are 2 to 3 meters tall.
Yeah.
So these trucks are enormous. And if you look at the ladder there for the driver to go up, you can kind of get an idea of the scale of these trucks. They're huge, huge, huge.
Oh, yeah.
And they cost a fortune. And when they started to replace human-driven trucks with these Komatsu robotic trucks, they found that the robotic ones were 12% more efficient than ones driven by people. And I mean, that's right there. That's a bit of a head wreck, because, are they using AI, or how are the trucks deciding what to do when? It's really fascinating, and they obviously are. And if you can get your fleet to be 12% more efficient, that means, that's 12% fewer trucks you have to buy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And these are not cheap trucks.
No, geez, given the size of them and things they got there and what they're actually transporting, they are and the robustness that they need to have, because let's face it, these trucks are not working in what you would call mechanical friendly environments.
No.
These trucks have to be hugely capable of withstanding a serious beating. But in terms of how they operate, it's actually pretty easy. Or it's not easy, it's interesting, because the mine, those trucks only operate within a certain area.
Yeah.
So you actually define tracks that actually and use GPS and telemetry to work out where the truck is in relation to the track. Think of it like an airport. It's a massive area, but you have predefined pathways. Now, whilst the trucks, whenever they're collecting directly from the coal face or the iron ore, have to go outside of those. But if you program the truck to get back onto that pathway as quickly as possible in the shortest distance, then you actually minimize the amount of time or possibility of a truck actually running into each other.
Yeah.
And you can actually maximize the routes as well. But that's just theorizing how they would actually do it. That's one of the ways that I would look at it. So you don't have to spend a lot of time on a decision algorithm on how to actually get from A to B. You may just go B on the track as quickly as possible, and then B to C is a predefined track.
Yeah.
And you're minimizing the amount of logic you need to do there.
Yeah. No, and when you see that, you know that the future of truck drivers is in serious jeopardy.
Yeah, no, totally. So,
and it's not just truck drivers, because this story talks about firefighting helicopters, which are autonomous. And that's just wild. These are helicopters. And I mean, I can play the video here. There's no real audio of any significance. You can see they're dropping precision things in exact places.
Yeah.
You've got fires here, and you've got a helicopter coming in, picking up water. And this is an autonomous helicopter. There's nobody flying it. Well, there's a guy flying it using a kind of an iPad device or a screen.
Yeah.
But he can fly a fleet of them, not just one. Yeah. This guy's going to throw up a drone so they can watch what's going on.
Jesus, that's impressive.
Over the fire there,
Yeah,
boom.
yeah.
And you can see you got a fleet of them coming in, boom, boom,
Yeah.
and boom.
You can. Sorry,
They could do.
My video's a little bit ahead of yours. But that is just phenomenal.
So, you know, the kind of things they can do is phenomenal. Like I say, it's not just trucks, it's helicopters as well. It's not just combat situations, but it's forest fires and things like that, you know. So a lot of good coming out of this. These ones are being developed by who was it again? Kaman, Kaman.
Come on.
Yeah, yeah. I hadn't heard of them before, I have to say, which is
No,
why
I hadn't
I
either. I hadn't
yeah.
either. Good. You know, probably Martin Gillet might have heard of them, given his aviation geekiness.
That's right. Yeah, they've been developed in conjunction with Lockheed Martin, who we all have heard of before, I'm sure. But
Yeah,
no, I hadn't heard of this company, Kaman. We're gonna switch gears because while we've been talking about the autonomous stuff at a high level, there's this cool story that I saw out of
yeah.
the
The Verge.
exactly talking about Arduino and getting down to kind of a micro level, and it's the first customer for the Intel Curie module, which is a little little IoT system on a chip, and the first customer is Arduino, which is unexpected. You know,
Yeah.
a lot
It's
of people would have thought it'd be something a little more sexy than that.
yeah.
Arduino have taken it and they've run with it, and they've brought out their Arduino 101, which has the Curie system on a chip on it, and it's got a couple of interesting sensors on it, which is going to be fun for Arduino to run with and our Arduino developers to play with.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember picking up Arduino. It must be about 4 or 5 years ago. And all you have is the board itself at the time, and you had to buy basically what they called shields for everything.
Yeah.
It did so, but over time, obviously, Arduino has built more and more onto the board itself. So, but it's interesting. We'll see what the Curie chip is actually capable of in situations like this.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, Intel are pitching it, so you got to think it's not going to be bad.
no, definitely not, definitely not. It's but you know, we've seen some really cool stuff from the Raspberry Pi, which is, you know, an ARM-based processor.
True.
So
True,
it is.
true.
So
We're going to get a plug in here. We're running our Redmonk Internet of Things conference in London in December. It's called Thingmonk, available at thingmonk.com. It'll be fun if we can manage to get a couple of those Arduino 101s along to that event and test them out there, because we typically have a bit of a hackathon first and then talks afterwards. So I'm sure this year will be no different.
yeah, no, that would be cool. That would be definitely cool. Hopefully, I can make it to that this year.
Twitter had a big week this week. They had a lot of announcements. So they introduced Twitter polls, or they are introducing Twitter polls. So it hasn't happened for everyone yet. It hasn't been rolled out in my tweets yet. But the idea is that when you go to tweet, you would have an option, this little guy here on the phone, and something similar, obviously, in the desktop, to create polls which will last for 24 hours. But they went a lot further than that. They announced the purchase of Fastlane, which is a tool for building iPhone apps, and they've added Android support to it. And they've added 8 new SDKs to Fabric. And the SDKs are interesting. You've got Stripe, AWS, Optimizely, Nuance, AppSy, Game Analytics, Mapbox, and PubNub. So it's been a big week for Twitter. And you saw Jack Dorsey coming out on stage and apologizing for the fact that they've been treating developers so badly. It's not just his apologizing for it. This is aimed right at developers, this kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know, they've gone back and realized that, they have to be a platform,
Yeah.
not just a service. And the stuff that you're doing here is really, really smart. Yes, it means that they're spending more money, but ultimately they're going to get a much, much better benefit out of it by, because it's going to take them time. If they try to do this by themselves, each of these services, it would take them time. It would.
Oh yeah, they'd never manage.
Yeah, they'd never manage it. It would fragment their development efforts and things like that. Either that, or have to hire an awful lot more people, which doesn't play well whenever they've just laid people off. So, but a lot of this stuff is really, really exciting. Yeah. So that is. Tom, it's 5:30. I'm going to have to go. I have a hard stop, a customer meeting. So I want you to thank you very, very much for having me again.
Not at all, Chris.
Certainly am much more coherent than I was last year, which is probably a good thing. Thanks very much, and I'll see you all next week. Cheers.
Thank you. Talk to you next week. Cheers, Chris. There's only a few more stories left to talk to anyway. So the first story that I thought we'd talk up was the one about Facebook, and this is an interesting one because Facebook have decided to. I've hit the wrong button. Sorry, go back again. Screen share. There we go. Facebook have decided to unleash what they call universal search across the entire social network. What does that mean? That means any post you've ever put into Facebook at any time, if it was public, as opposed to just within your friends, if it was public, it has now been indexed and will be findable. So while that is interesting and to a certain extent scary in and of itself, the other side of this is that Facebook are taking on Twitter on this big time, because Twitter has always been the real-time news surfacing engine. So if something went on, like the bus crash in France today or some other big news event, you could always count on going to Twitter, finding the relevant hashtag, and finding what's going on within seconds. This is what Facebook are trying to do now. They're going to go for real-time search so that anyone can go to Facebook and in real time find anything that is being talked about at any point in time. So this is a huge, huge shot across Twitter's bows. And, frankly, it's been a long time coming. Twitter have been sitting back with very little innovation for the last 18 months. And now Facebook are stepping up and going, guys, you've been doing nothing. We're going to step into this place. And in Facebook style, they could well decide to dominate and they could succeed in dominating it. Having said that, with the change in leadership in Twitter now, and the last couple of announcements that we just talked to out of Twitter, it looks like Twitter have suddenly started to up their game as well. So the next few months, watching the battle in this space between Twitter and Facebook is going to be a really, really, really interesting one. Moving on from there, there's a new artificial intelligence that writes articles for you, and it's now available for testing. So this is not something that'll write your blog post for you. This is the kind of thing that is meant for people or for organizations who need to put out many, many publications per day. And this AI engine can watch data streams and write reports based on those pretty much in real time, but it needs a lot of inputs at the back end from which it can pull data. So there's a lot of setup involved in it. So it's not aimed at people writing single blog posts. It's aimed at, like I say, organizations who take in a lot of data, crunch data, and write reports on the back of that. So it's already being used, and if I can remember who's using it, Body Space, Associated Press. There you go. It's the technology that Associated Press began using in the middle of 2014 to churn out 3,000 financial stories per quarter. So it also did Yahoo's Fantasy Football League and the social fitness app Body Space's workout data into readable reports. But the big one there is Yahoo. So that'll tell you the kind of scale you're looking at. So it's not for a single person with a blog. It's not going to do that, not yet. It's more for larger publications. Let's Encrypt. Let's Encrypt is a cool one. It's an organization which have been saying for a while that they're going to produce security certificates for everyone and free, so that anyone can get a HTTPS certificate for their website and serve their site off HTTPS, so encrypted websites. So it's been a long time. And for anyone who has tried to manage digital certificates before, having this done for you lifts a huge headache. So this is really, really cool. Also, Google announced about a year or so ago that they were going to give priority in search results to sites which run off HTTPS. So to get higher up in the search results, it's important to have HTTPS on your site. And now Let's Encrypt will allow you to do that for free. This is a cool story about a CRISPR, sorry, this is a cool story about gene splicing and using gene splicing to go after Huntington's disease. Huntington's disease is a disease of the brain caused by a single mutation. And as a result, the new method of DNA sequencing and editing, which has been come up with in the last couple of years, called CRISPR, is making Huntington's a target which researchers are now able to go after. CRISPR is kind of democratizing biological research. There's going to be massive pros and cons to that. This is one of the big pros. Researchers were able to, within mice at least, infect mice with Huntington's and then treat half of them with this new method using the CRISPR splicing technologies, gene splicing technologies, treat half of them with that and leave the other half untreated as a control. The control group came down badly with Huntington's, whereas the treated group did not. So the outcomes were very, very positive. It'll take a long time before any of that gets into human trials yet, but it looks very, very, very positive. Sticking with the health industry, this new hair clip is being developed. And this hair clip is being developed for people who have hearing problems. And what it does is it vibrates to let them hear, if you want, sounds in their environment. They hear it through the vibration. And it's very cool because in situations where people have a hearing issue and something like a fire alarm goes off, for example, and they don't hear it, they might not respond. But while wearing something like this, they'd be immediately aware of it and they would know what to do. So that's pretty cool. This hasn't been developed yet. It's been designed and being rolled out, or it's called Antenna. It's being designed at the moment. It's going through several stages of development, and they're looking for funding and government grants to 3D print it. They've made 200 prototypes and they're getting further along the way. They have a promotion program by a government IT promotion agency. So it's continuing along its development path, but it looks like a very interesting product. And you can see you don't just have the hair clip model, but they're developing also an earring model. And people who have hearing issues are saying things like, I felt I could hear the sound of cicadas for the first time. So tremendously positive feedback there from people who've tried it out. We've talked about diversity on this program before, and Facebook have come up with this thing, Tech Prep. And Tech Prep is supposed to be a way where Facebook are enabling people who have difficulties getting into technology to get into technology more easily. And they're not just targeting the potential technologists, but also people who can help them, their families, their support groups, their teachers. So they have programs in place to help teachers come up with lesson plans, families to come up with support structures, and students to come up with classes, and to bring in people who are Black, Hispanic, Asian, women, people who are typically underrepresented in technology. So it looks like a very good program, and we need more of this to make the tech workforce more diverse than it has been to date. And lastly, one last story. This colorful children's book introduces kids to the basics of code. This is a nice story. This is a nice book which is being developed. It's on Kickstarter, if I remember correctly. They're introducing kids to the basics of coding using character-based story and things like this. Doc type starts every file, so it introduces kids nice and easily to ideas like CSS, giving your code style, and all these kinds of things. It looks very cool, and it makes it easy for kids to get into a lot of the concepts which might be more difficult later on. So anything that can make it easy for kids, to get into this kind of stuff can only be good. Okay, that was the last story. We're finishing early today because we needed to finish early because Chris needed to get off early. So that's it for this week. Thank you for joining us. The links, as always, to all the stories are on the page, on the show page. We'll be back again same time next week with a proper length show. So come back then. The audio for this will be up on SoundCloud shortly. So thank you for your attention. Thank you for your time, and see you all next week.